Hello friends, welcome to my first official crochet tutorial and pattern. I wanted to make a version of Spiderweb Mitts that I absolutely loved, and I wasn't able to find one that I loved, so here we are. I know I'm releasing this after Halloween, but honestly, I'm a goth at heart, and I know a lot of us like to be kind of fancy times that are not Halloween. I also know that a lot of us are going to look at something like a spider web and think, ooh, I want to make that in black, because again, I'm a goth at heart. But first of all, it makes no sense to record a pattern tutorial in black yarn. I have tried it, I don't recommend it. We're going to be making this one in this video. This is the exact one that I created while recording. And I make a bracelet as well as a web and then attach the two together. I did that because one of my main problems with other patterns I was finding was that it had you kind of add on the bracelet at the end in a way that I found very honestly confusing, and the more I looked into it, the more I just felt like it could be improved. So I made them as two separate pieces because you can actually change your bracelet to any style that you want that way. You can create something that's completely different, like I had created this one using a shell stitch pattern that I'm still sort of working on, so I'm not going to show you this one because it's not perfect yet. The usual approach that I saw was to make kind of a grid, sort of like this was one of the ones that I made initially. This isn't the exact grid that I saw in other patterns or anything like that, it's just like me working through the design process. You can definitely make something simpler than what I make in this video if you prefer, but I just felt like it was a good starting point that you can build on and change to your liking. This bracelet does close with a button. I talk in the video about how to make sure you're putting the button in the right place for both right hand and left hand mitts. But also you will notice I have very small wrists, and yeah, I don't need the bracelets to be as long as they are, but I figured this was more likely to accommodate the average person. My wrists are so small. It's like 5.75 inches, I believe, last time I measured it. Pretty little. Nothing ever fits me. So I made these so that they do fit me, but it should also have room to fit a more normal person. On that note about sizing, these connection chains down here are something that you can adapt, and you may end up deciding to adapt if you are using different materials than I was, a different hook size, or just it doesn't quite look right to you. Now you'll see this white one. I'm really happy with how this looks. I think this is pretty great. It's close to my hand. It lets me move my fingers around. I'm pleased with this. So I wanted to make a black one just to show a couple of important differences when you are working with crochet thread. Now I have two of Aunt Lydia's thread here. They're exactly the same weight. This one just looks like a black hole because it's black. That's why we're not showing this one in the tutorial. This thread isn't substantially different when you look at it off the spool. They're both the same weight and everything. However, when you make one in black, you start noticing some slight differences, and this is a common experience with using black yarn. It's not just this thread, but I made this off-white color, I think it's called natural, at least like, I made like so many of these things. I made a bunch as I was working on the pattern because it's easier to see and it looks cute. It also is actually more like a spiderweb color is, so it made sense to me to go with this one. But then as I finished, I was like, well, surely people will want to see what this looks like in black. And lo and behold, some of these same adjustments that I had carefully worked up for this color don't look quite the same in black. For some reason, what I have noticed across many different brands is that if you get black yarn, especially cotton or a natural fiber, the black will be a little thinner sometimes or a little stiffer. In this case, I feel like it's both because my chains that I made with the same hook, my chains have a little bit more space in them. And I was being pretty vigilant about it. You can see I did mess up a little bit on a chain up here. There's a little bit of a space in there. But like, I was being pretty vigilant when I made both of them, and yet this one looks looser. There's just no denying it. So make sure when you make this pattern that you really take into account all the points where I mention adjusting for how it's coming along for you. And if you want to make a black one, I honestly would recommend for sure adjusting the very last round and the adjustment chains. But something that I thought was interesting also, I made the exact same bracelet. I know you can't really see the button on the black one because it's black, but I'm gonna fold it back and show you why you can't see it is actually because it's like all the way over here on the side. To get the same tension out of this bracelet as I did this one, that I made the exact same way, I have to pull this one a little bit tighter. So really, the black thread is just a little different. I wanted to be super upfront with that because I don't want you to see this and think, oh, I'm gonna get exactly that same result with whatever thread color you have. Crochet thread comes in a lot of colors, and you may be wanting to make one that matches your outfit or your costume or just whatever, and you are going to occasionally have to adjust some of these chains. It's just, I think that's inevitable, but at the same time, that's why I wasn't happy with the patterns that I tried before, because I didn't understand how I could adjust it as I was going to make it fit me better. And I know I have small hands, so things often don't fit me that well, but I really didn't like how baggy and stretched out the first one that I made was. So here we are, that's why I made this pattern. As you go, you'll be able to adjust the loops that connect to your fingers, and this is most likely what you'll do to change the size if you have a much bigger hand than I do. But you also will want to take a close eye on this round as you're going, because if you are noticing that it's bunching up a lot, like the way this one is right here, that means you should probably reduce that length. I didn't do that when I made this because I felt like that would be dishonest to show you this like, ooh, it looks so perfect, and have them both look perfect when in reality the black one wasn't following the pattern. So just make sure as you make this that you take the opportunity periodically to lay the web down, look at it as you're making it, make sure that you're happy with how it's laying flat, and then when it's time to try it on, make sure that you actually do that and just take a look and make sure that you're happy with how it lays. Because when I tried this on, I could tell, before I attached it, I could tell that these were a little loose. But again, I wanted to go through and actually fully complete the project to show you the difference between these two yarns. As you proceed to watch the rest of the video, note that I start with the bracelet because if you make the bracelet first, you can sew on your button and attach it and everything else. Try on the bracelet, make sure you're happy with it, and then you can take a look at your hand and figure out where you want the attachments to go. You also then have one less end to weave in because you can make the web. You end here and then you start attaching right away. So that way there's only one end to weave in for the middle, one end down here, and then one for each end of the bracelet. So only 4 ends to weave in, which I prefer because I hate weaving in ends. Don't we all? I hope you enjoy it, and I hope that you let me know how it comes out. Chain of 59. Your length may vary. Multiple of 5. plus 4. Now I'm going to do a row of single crochet, chain 1, into the second chain from the hook, start placing your single crochets. This is 14 so far. It's taking me a lot longer to hold my hands this way, so I'm going to pause the video and come back when I've reached the end with 59 stitches completed. We've completed 59 single crochets. I prefer to start this way because working into the chain at this size is very difficult for me, and I don't like to just do all of my double crochets into this row, but I also found foundation stitches to be equally challenging, so you can adapt it if you don't like this. But to proceed from here in the pattern, we're going to chain 3. This counts as a stitch. We're going to turn our work and add another double crochet into the same place that we just chained from. Sometimes it may help to turn it to the side to view that spot more easily. These stitches don't have to be perfectly placed for this to work out. You can sometimes accidentally snag 3 loops instead of 2 when you're doing single crochet at this size. It's really fine. From here, now we have 2 stitches to start. Chain 2. Skip our next 2 chains. Skip our next 2 stitches and work a double crochet into the 3rd stitch. Do 2 more double crochet, 1 per stitch. My hands really like to move a lot when I'm doing double crochet. Now, chain 2 again, skip 2, and do 3 more double crochet. This is now our pattern we're going to repeat throughout the project. 3 more double crochets completed, chain 2, skip 2, you do want to get at least 2 legs on your hook when you insert. I think I just got 3. I don't mind for this. Those single crochets are so small that you don't really have the same visible effect that you do with other fabric. It's really hard for me to even be sure if I did or not. I think I did. So we're going to continue this way to the end of the row. 3 double crochets, then a chain 2. I will always make sure to try and show what I'm working on in focus after each stitch, due to my setup and my inexperience. There are definitely going to be times that we're going a little blurry, but especially when we're in the more complicated part of the pattern. Not that any of this is that complicated, but I always make sure any new things are shown. Periodically I'll show you what I've got. Of course, your single crochet row is going to be curling into your hand while you're working into it. That also adds a little bit of complexity for me to hold everything in the perfect place. But I wanted to be zoomed in so you could see at this scale. You can't really see anything if you're not zooming in. If you are very sharp-eyed, you may notice that later in the video my nail polish is slightly less chipped. It's because I'm re-recording this part due to just being dissatisfied with the quality. I always try and improve, do better for you guys to see what I'm doing. But what I'm making here is exactly the same as what I made before, just easier for you to see. I know pausing the video and coming back can be kind of annoying, so I do my best not to do that. But there are a few times that I've had to make a cut. I'm not doing it to add any annoyance for you. Sometimes these things just happen. I'll go on. Getting close to the end of our row here. gets very fiddly. My impulse is to hold this right in front of my face, which is definitely not conducive to recording, nor is it actually good for me. Very close to the end now. This is my last group of 3 double crochets at the end of this row. So once you're at this point, if you're not here yet, feel free to pause. I'm going to chain 2, and we're going to want to put 2 stitches next to each other at the end like we did at the start. So find your very first stitch. I'm going to turn to the edge to see where mine is. It's easier to see from the top because it's a little distorted. We're going to skip these 2 and go into here, if I can. There we are. 2 double crochets need to go here. So now we have finished the basic of this row. 2 stitches at the beginning. Oops. Chain of 2, 3 double crochets all the way down. Now we'll turn the corner. Now we chain 3. We're putting 2 more double crochets into the same place. I had to cut there because my clock sounds like birds, which is great until you're recording a video. Okay, there's the first half of our corner. Well, this is one corner. Now we need to turn again, so chain 3 again. We're now going to work down the back of what we were just doing, which means we're going into the other side of the chain. So for our first 2 double crochets, we want them to be in the back of the chain rather than the stitch, but if you can't get it, it's honestly not a big deal. I usually can. Let's see if I'm in focus. Looks like it. So I'm looking for, basically if you look along, there's 2 legs left of the chain because I only hooked the first leg when I was making my single crochet. It's somewhere, it looks like it's going to be here. Now you can tell because, let me hold this, my 3 double crochets coming up each have a little bump of the chain above them. And I know I'm going to need to skip 2, so there's 2 more chain sections. That determines where I'm going to put this one. This is 2 more double crochets again. Which for a moment I forgot how to do. Okay, so we should have something like this. If your placement is a little different, it's fine. A lot of times these 2 I'll try and put in the chain. I don't feel like it makes a big difference. From here we're going to chain 2 and start our regular pattern. So our first double crochet I want to put on top of this one. Check out how I'm looking here. Okay, and when you hold it out, you should see that's pretty much straight up and down, not over here or over here too far. It's very easy to slip into the wrong spot with your hook when you're working into a chain of this size. Okay, there's my first group of 3. We're going to chain 2 and continue down till we reach the end. Oops. Don't you just hate that? If you're not sure which chain is above your double crochet, remember you can always count from the other side. Skipping this one, going here. Yours may look a little different if you worked your first row into 2 legs of the chain, as some people do, or even if you specifically try to work into the back bump, whereas I just grabbed one of the 2 sides of the chain V. I did that because it's so small that I just don't feel like it's worth the extra pain in my hands. That's another reason why sometimes there's a cut in the video, because I have to stretch my hands, and I recommend you do the same thing. Working on something this small can be very cramp-inducing. Now, periodically, especially on this row, you're going to want to hold it out and make sure that everything is lined up, because it's easy to put your double crochet off by 1. Especially if you start going faster when you get into a groove. Getting close to the end. One more group of 3 before I'm at the end. This is my second row. When we get to the end here, as before, put 2 double crochets into, oops, sorry about that. When we get to the end, put 2 double crochets into our first chain. This one's easy to find because of our tail. Although the tail is kind of in the way. There we go. Next, as before, we're going to chain 3. Put 2 more double crochet into the same place. Now here, I'm actually going to put mine into the side of this single crochet, just because I can see very easily where it is. I often just put them right here, but I think it looks a little bit better. Again, it doesn't make a big difference, but I like to provide these tips in case you want to improve your symmetry or just be curious. Okay, so there's half of our corner is now done. Chain 3 again. Oops. Oh goodness. Hook was turned the wrong way. And we need 2 more double crochet. Oh, wait. That's not true. We already have 2 more double crochet right here. We're going to slip to the end of this first round, which means we started with a chain 3. So this is the top of our double crochet that we placed, and we started with the chain 3, so we want to slip into the chain right next to it. And I will stay on camera this time. There we are. Okay. So that's the end of row 2. At this point, if you're not adding a button, you could even stop here if you have another way you want to close up your bracelet. Because we're adding a button, I need a 3rd row, because then I'll have these holes in the center. So I'm going to continue on here, and I'm actually going to work back along this short edge by chaining 1, turning it like this, and putting a single crochet into the space. Now chain 1, we're just making like kind of a little corner right here, and do 2 more single crochet. All in the same space. From here, we're going to put 2 single crochet into these stitches, and then 2 more into the corner. We're just working back, but I don't want to do a slip stitch here because it's very tight. So 2 single crochet into the space. Now, here we are, time to chain 3. Just another little corner turn, and now we're going to put our 2 double crochet to go down this round into these 2 from before. Oh, sorry about that. Come on. That's a completed stitch. And our second. All right. Now we're chaining 2, and we're just going to work into the top of the double crochets from before, completely normally, like you would for any other project. So we're just doing the same pattern now. Chain 2 and then 3 double crochet on top of the other double crochet, skipping those chain spaces. I like this pattern because it doesn't quite look like a granny stitch, which it would if I was alternating placement of my groups of 3. It adds a little more stability than a basic grid, but you still have a delicate edge that kind of suits the aesthetic of the web itself. It's also relatively simple, although recording it has not been simple. It has given me a pain because I am really bad at doing this and staying in focus. The web I had very little problem with. So, trying to improve and learn all the time. Here's how it looks at this point. Just keep on repeating the pattern till you get to the end. Then we're going to add a place for a button. Again, you don't have to use a button, but it works in a pinch. And even for me, with a clumsy left hand, I can get the button closed on my right wrist pretty quickly. I kind of have to hug it against my body, so it's not something I can easily show on camera. It's not quite as easy on camera, but I can still do it. It's strange how forgiving I am of other people's pattern videos when I watch them, but when I'm making one, I feel like somehow I'm doing a much worse job, even though I have learned some amazing tricks from pretty low quality videos. Some of the things on YouTube have been up for over a decade now, and you can tell when you watch it, but that doesn't mean there's no value in them. And yet, I hold myself to this very high standard, which is evident in the fact that I'm recording this another time. Okay, we're approaching the end here. We're coming up on the last 2 double crochet. Just place 2 double crochets into these as per usual. Put a double crochet into each one to maintain our pattern. And now onto this edge, rather than turning a corner or anything, we're actually going to add the place for the button to go. So first double crochet into the chain space, just 1 stitch. Now we're going to chain 1, and you'll notice how I'm holding this. That's because we're going to put a single crochet around the double we just made. I say that wrong almost every time. Put a second single crochet next to that one. We're wrapping the body of that stitch. Okay, like so. 2 more single crochet go into this chain space. There's 4 stitches. 2 more single crochet to cover these doubles. 1 per stitch. Now we've worked 6 single crochets. And put 2 more into the last chain space. Like so. Now, chain 1 and turn. This is where I get a little extra. If you need more space for your button, depending on what you've done, you can add more rows of single crochet here. Just keep going back and forth. You could also just do that if you want, but for some reason I always make mine a little extra. So I've chained 1, and you can see that's the very small loop of the chain coming off of my hook. And that's the single crochet that I just did. We're actually going to skip that one and just go over here. So we want to make 6 single crochets now. Oof. Had a heck of a time getting that one for some reason. Here's 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. At this point, we're just going to slip into what was the first stitch. So put your hook in, but don't do anything else once you've pulled up that loop. Just pull it right on through. Now we have 6 for our edge. Again, I don't know why I'm just extra like this. Now we're going to chain 1 and turn. And we're going to do 1 single crochet into this first stitch. It's very easy, as I just did, when you start this row, to put that first single crochet into the slip stitch instead of to your actual stitch. It's the first time I've actually done that, but no video is perfect for me. So from the side you can see more easily sometimes, or from the top where your 6 stitches are that you've just worked. So the first one that we want to work into is actually here. Make sure that that's visible. This is my starting stitch down here. So I counted back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you still chain 1 at the start of this round. Put your single crochet there. Now we do a half double and 2 doubles. Now another half double. And finally a single crochet into the first stitch I did. There we go. So now we are ready to, I'm ready to fasten off and attach the button. If you feel like this isn't enough, if you've changed yarn or anything like that, just add more rows of single crochet in here. Give yourself something nice and sturdy to sew into. It does add a little bit more length, so don't add like a ton, but you know, it's your bracelet, you can do what you want with it. When you cut this tail, I recommend about 8 inches left to sew the button in, and you're going to want to take this end as you fasten it off. Move your tail into this area before you start sewing, or else you'll end up like folding your fabric very strangely. I am the world's worst at sewing on buttons, so that part is not in the video, believe me. We're all thankful for it. Just pause at this point and attach your button or your other clasp of choice. Then you can try it on and see how you like it. Here's my completed bracelet. Please note that when you're making this bracelet, if you only have a button available to you that's bigger, you're going to want to modify this pattern. You could use something like a triple crochet instead of a double crochet to make bigger squares. My button is just about 1 centimeter in diameter, so for me, this is certainly good enough for this bracelet. Now this is ready to make a web to attach to. Chain 3 to start your round. That counts as a double crochet stitch. Chain 1 for your space. That's the first of 8 sections completed. Double crochet. Chain 1. Second section completed. Third section. Fourth section. Fifth section. Sixth section. Seventh section. One more double crochet. Chain 1. Tighten up your magic ring. Here we have the end of round 1 ready to join. I recommend counting backwards from the stitch you can clearly see to figure out where was your third chain from your starting DC. This is the top of the stitch I can clearly see. There's a chain 1 for the space. I want to go in here. Slip stitch to this chain. There's round 1 completed. Round 2, we're going to again begin with a double crochet. It's 3 chains. Our spaces now are 4 in length, so chain 4. And place another double crochet in the top of the double crochet that's next up below you from the previous round. Chain 4. Section completed. Now continue along. Continuing to double crochet and chain 4. This is our last double crochet. At this point, it's a good idea to check and make sure you have the right number of sections. You should have 7 before you join here. Now we need to chain 4. And we're going to slip stitch to join again. We are going to look for the 3rd chain because we are using double crochets, and 3 chains is about the height of a double crochet stitch. So, slip stitch, round 2 is completed. Round 3 of the web still begins with double crochet or chain 3. Our spaces are now chain 6. At this point, I recommend you begin using the split stitch technique when placing your stitches into the next round. Instead of placing this as the usual placement, you're going to split the V that's beneath it. You should come out on the back with 3 strands on top of your hook. Split stitch completed. Provides extra stability. Let's keep going. Chain 6. Demonstrate again. Get some thread. Now, instead of simply going under these 2 loops, when I put my hook under those 2 loops, I can now see I'm looking at the V that goes in this direction. You're going to want to put your hook between those 2. Completed my stitch. I let that stitch get a little looser, so the stitch itself is now loose. However, the connection point does not get stretched out. I'll demonstrate again. Chain 6. There's my usual stitch. There's the V underneath of it. I'm going to go, oops, get out. Okay, I'm going to go in here. I'm pulling this to the right and I'm pivoting the work to help me push the hook through the right way. If you're not sure, I'm not sure that one's correct, so I'm going to back out. Stretch on this to help it go back to its original shape. Reset your tension in your hand if you need to. I see where I want to go. Into this V right here. Oops. correct. Took me a few tries, but now when I turn, it's as though you're seeing the back loop of the stitch, or the third loop, I should say, behind the back loop, if you're familiar with that terminology. That's correct. Chain 6 again. Double crochet with a split stitch base. Chain 6. Splitting my stitch. Fighting with my thread, chain 6. Split the stitch. One more, chain 6. And a split stitch double crochet. You would really be able to tell at this point if you were missing a section, but you do want to make sure that this is laying flat. If yours is not flat, and you have been following my directions, you may need to adjust the length of chains that you have. If it looks like these are too tight, you're going to need to go back to round 2 and make these longer. If it looks like these are too tight, 6 may not be long enough for your space. However, if these are all very ripply, 6 may be too long for you. You may have a very tight tension compared to mine. Finally, slip stitch into our third chain here. That's round 3. Doing round 4. Make sure you don't turn your web over and you just keep working continuously in the round, or it starts to get very hard to place your stitches. We're going to do half trebles, which means we start by chaining 4. And now our spaces are going to be 9 chains long. Take a hold of your chain partway up to help you maintain tension as you chain 9. To do your half treble, you're going to yarn over twice and keep it all tucked up under your thumb here. You're going to look at your stitch you did below, and depending on how tight you did it and how forgiving your yarn is, this will be harder or easier for you. Just checking my position of my hands. Okay. I'm going to just kind of put my hook into the middle of this mess and tug to the right. This is a little bit tricky, but it's worth it to add that extra stability. I may be too deep here. This may be too far down. I can't quite tell until I pull up the loop. That might be correct. If you're working with black yarn especially, you may have to insert and pull up before you can actually tell. Now, yarn over and pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 3 to do a half treble. I think that looks good enough for me. Chaining 9 now to go on. 7, 8, 9. I'll demonstrate that again. Yarn over twice. Keep it trapped with your thumb so you can hunt for your spot. This one looks more normal. We've got our 2 loops from our stitch up here, and beneath that there's a V going to the side. Putting my hook in there while angling it to the right. Yes, that looks correct. Pull through 2, pull through 3. Another section completed. Chain 9. Yarn over twice. Locate your spot. Pull up a loop. Make sure you're in the right spot. Yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over, pull through 3. Chain 9. There is my spot. Pull through 2, pull through 3, chain 9. At this point, you may be able to tell if your chain counts are going to need to be adjusted. If it is not laying fairly flat, if your web does not lay pretty flat at this point, you're going to want to stop the video and go back and adjust your chain lengths. Make sure you make a note of them so you can make your second mitt the same size. If yours is laying flat, we can keep going together. I'm going to stay zoomed out for this part so it's a little bit less blurry and headache inducing. Chaining 9. Here's my split stitch, and pulling through 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Last split stitch of the round. Not quite done with them yet, sorry. can save it. I can save it. I can't save it. Okay, final section, chain 9. And we started with a half treble, which is 4 chains high. 1, 2, 3, 4. Slip stitch to the 4th chain. Round 4 is completed. Continuing on to round 5, still using half trebles. Chain 4. Our sections are much longer now, they're chain 12. Split stitch for a half treble works the same as it did for a double. Whoops. Depending on how tight you manage to make your half treble, it may be a little easier or more difficult. I'll zoom in to show the next one. First I'm going to chain 12. Yarn over twice. Make sure I have thread. Find my focus. Okay. Up here we have our V from our normal stitch. To the side you can see you may need to take this loop down here, may be looser or tighter for you. Sometimes I need to tuck this one out of the way. This is the extra loop from being a half treble. Behind that and our normal stitch, you can see where you need to split is the same as it is on a double crochet. Oops, oh, I lost it. No worries. Reset my stitch. Find my place. That little pivot really helps me get my hook to go through. And there we are. Now before I lose all of my loops here, yarn over and pull through 2. Oh, I only made it through 1. Eek. And pull through 3. Done. Okay. Before you get carried away on this round, take note, I advise making section 7 a little shorter. So we just finished section 2. I'm going to keep demonstrating the split. First we chain 12. Yarn over from my half treble. Find my spot. Okay, so here you can see these two are the top of the stitch. This is that extra loop I was referring to. That's the extra loop that comes from being a half treble. Where you want to enter is behind that. Don't know if that was in focus or not. I'll keep demonstrating. It's hard for me to watch the camera at the same time. If you're having a hard time, just keep watching and maybe one of the demonstrations will do it for you. That was the end of section 3, so section 4 we're chaining 12. Doing our half treble again. Okay, so here, when I pull up with my right hand, hoping you can see it, the regular stitch here is kind of loose. This is why we're doing a split. All of your stitches end up like this if you don't split them, because the tension on the stitch just eventually gets a little warped. So you want to find the loop that basically corresponds to this guy right here, where I'm poking my hook into. You want to find the base of that bee. Use your hook to help if you can, to snag the loop that's on my right. If you're a left-handed crocheter, I apologize, I cannot crochet left-handed. Hopefully you can find what works for you to split. Now from the back, I see, this is so hard to show on camera. Here's my spot, there it is. There's 2 loops close to my thumb, this thumb, are from the regular stitch, and the loop close to the end of the hook, that's your extra one. That's how you know you've split correctly. Now the hard part is pulling up the loop. Got it. Here we are. More stable. Yarn over and pull through 2. If you start to lose your half treble, don't panic. Just pull that back down and you shouldn't be able to maintain that yarn over that you need to pull through here. Thread problems. One more. Oh goodness, did I lose it? Oh, I don't want to have to do that again. Hey, I got it. There we go. Okay, that was section 4. So 5 is normal, chain 12. It's easy to start losing track, but make sure your chains are still fairly tight at this point. As I lost count from saying that. Half treble, another demonstration for you. Hopefully you're getting it. If you can't see with your black yarn, use a very strong light if you can. You may have to crochet in a weird place in your house, but once you start getting the hang of the motion, you can do it in lower lighting. There we go. Pull through 2. And just to say, I actually snagged my previous chain with my left hand here to help me maintain that yarn over. If you can do that, that's helpful. That was section 5. Now section 6 is also normal, chain 12. Another split. This one's pretty easy to see, including my extra loop from being a half treble is very loose here. So you don't want to grab that guy, you want to go above him. But you can see sometimes they're not so loose. I think that's your last yarn over, but don't hold me to that. think that was right. That was right. Looked a little funny, but it was right. Okay. Yarn over. I can't really grab that like I was hoping. Just having to hold it now with my fingers, reposition, pull through 3. Okay, we have 2 sections left. This is 7. 7 we only want to be 10 chains long. This just helps how it is assembled with my directions. You're welcome to adjust this if it ends up not working for you. We still end that 10 chains with a half treble and we split. But this is our last one for the round. Try I'm on camera. Okay. We're almost done with the web, don't give up. Our last section here, it's kind of up to you if you want to make it 10 or 12. I'm happy with mine being 12. Okay, slip stitch to our 4th chain. Go. Round 5 is completed. You'll notice the chains are a little bit more loose on mine because we are accounting for how it will then be stretched over your hand. But if yours are too loose, you can adjust it. Just make a note for yourself. This is the end of round 5. We're on to the last round of the web, round 6. This one begins with a treble because our first section is our thumb section, and I think that's more comfortable. So that means we need to chain 6 to start. And the thumb section is quite long. This is going to be one that you will adjust if it doesn't fit for sure. Mine is 25 chains. Okay. Make sure you have plenty of thread for this part because it's annoying when it gets caught, as mine is right now. To end your finger loops, you're going to do a full treble crochet. It's just much more comfortable in my opinion. You're going to split it the same way we have been. I'm not going to zoom in because it gets a little disorienting. And at this point you should know about how to split if you're still having a hard time. I recommend just practicing, pausing the video. But once you've split, don't forget for a full treble, you're doing a yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and another yarn over, pull through 2. This is the space that goes between your fingers, and it's just more comfortable. If yours is still not long enough, I recommend looking up how to extend a stitch, which is basically adding a chain in the middle of the stitch. Moving on to section 2 for your index finger, I like to have mine be 18 chains long. Again, check your thread before you start your treble crochets. Make sure that you have plenty coming off your spool to work with. Now, a treble crochet, because this is also between our fingers. I suppose if you really don't like splitting the stitch, you could probably opt to do them regular between the fingers and it would be less visible. I prefer the consistency of doing them all split. Section 1, I said it again. Section 2 completed. Section 3. This one is for your middle and ring finger. They're both going to be 15 chains. Treble crochet in between. Very close. Oh, that looks funny. If it looks funny, just do it again. If you make this wrong, you may end up with a bunched up section between your fingers that would be uncomfortable. That looks correct. Pull through 2. Pull through. Another chain 15. Another treble. That looks right. Nice and sturdy, I think. Oh, now I'm not sure. No, I don't think that was right. Might have been, but I'd rather be sure. There we go. Okay, just to check in, we've done thumb, index finger, middle and ring are both 15 in length. For my pinky, I have also been doing this one as 15, but we're going to end with a half treble. So chain 15. Half treble. And yes, I'm splitting it again. At a half treble, so we pull through 3 at the end. Okay, you've now made your finger loops. These are the ones you will adjust most likely if it's not comfortable. Our next 3 you can adjust if your attachment to the bracelet causes some unwanted rippling or bunching. So we'll proceed with the ones that work for me with the bracelet that we made earlier in the video. To start with, we're going to do a chain 12. And a half treble crochet at the end. Both of the next sections are chain 12 as well. and then we will be done with this round. Okay, half treble. Oh, I can see it with my eyes. Last section, chain 12. And now we want to count a full treble at the base of section 1 for your thumb. So you're going to count up 5 stitches. Slip stitch to that one. Whew. It's the simplest thing sometimes. Okay, we have now finished round 6. And we are ready to attach to the bracelet. If you have to park this for now, I recommend adding some extra chains here so that nothing gets undone. At this point, you can also try it on. Let's show what it looks like first as an overview. Here's the end of section. Here's the end of row 6. Before we get into attachment, this is your thumb loop, index, and the rest of your fingers, followed by 3 sections, this one being section 7 that we made previously a little shorter. You are ready to try it on at this point. I recommend making the bracelet first. If you did not make the bracelet first, you're just going to want to leave yourself a lot of thread to do your connection chains with. I don't know exactly how long, it depends on the number of chains. If you'd like, you can look ahead to how many chains we use to connect, chain that many, then leave yourself a little more extra just for safety, and then cut your thread. Then you can use your same ball of thread to make a bracelet of whatever style you prefer. This is the one I just made for this video earlier, so I'll be demonstrating how to attach it to this one. When you do try on your web, I'm going to take my rings off. I recommend that for your sanity. You want to make sure, of course, that your thumb is going through the biggest section, and then one finger through each. It might take a second, especially if you have long nails like I do. So now, what we're going to do is attach this edge to this edge. So you should be able to gently tug on this. It can stretch quite a bit more than we need it to because we want it to be comfortable when you have your hand closed as well. If any of these inner ones especially are very loose here, you're going to want to stop and assess and determine if you want to change them. See, the reason we use that full treble here is just to give a good amount of space around the thumb joint. If your thumb feels too tight and you don't have full range of movement, definitely add some length to this one. Believe me, you don't want this to be uncomfortable. So, once you've determined your fit is good, I'm going to video attaching, but basically all we're doing is we're making a chain and we're picking a spot to attach it to. Then we're going back up and coming back down, and we do that, I think, a total of 8 times for what I prefer in terms of connection. You can change it as much as you'd like. I just started over here because I didn't want to have to cut another end and weave in another end. Okay, setting up for attachment, you can immediately tell that I have different nail polish. Yes, I'm re-recording another part of the video because I'm crazy. No, that's not why. I want to be as accurate and clear as possible. And I did not discuss before now how to choose where to attach your bracelet to your web correctly. Depending on the length of your bracelet, you may have a slightly different length here. But what we're going to be considering specifically is how many chain spaces we have. This is 5, 14, including this little guy on the end. There's no perfect way for me to tell you to do this because you may end up adjusting how your chains that connect here are actually positioned. But if you're going to follow what I've written down and what I'm about to do here, this is going to cover about 4 of the chain spaces of the bracelet. Since mine is 14, that means I will have 10 left that are not affected, and I'd like to kind of have 5 on one side and 5 on the other. There's my cat. Anyway, so I've put my stitch marker here to mark my 5th space because this is where I want to start. What we're going to do now is actually attach the web. My yarn looks crazy because I already had it attached and thought I was done, and then realized I could have done better here. So forgive the crazy yarn. It's also cut, so I'm not going to have a whole bunch of excess, but I should have enough to do this. There is one more important note that I want to put in here before we do any attaching. I debated where to put this in the video, and I think this is the safest place to be sure that you will see it. When you go to make this, you want to make sure that your second mitt isn't perfectly identical to your first one because our hands are not identical. Our thumbs are on different sides. So the best way to account for this is to make one like this with the button facing up while you're attaching to the edge here, and to make your second one with the button facing down against the table. This will make sure that this bracelet wraps comfortably around your left hand with your thumb still on the top of your screen here. This is where my thumb loop is. This will now wrap comfortably onto my left hand, whereas otherwise, if you make 2 that have the button up like this, your left hand, the button is going to be against your skin, and it will basically be like wearing an inside-out shirt. You don't want to do that. So for this one, I'm going to keep making the one that fits my right hand, because that's what I've been doing through the whole video. So my stitch marker is here. But when you make your second one, flip your bracelet over and move your stitch marker to this edge, just so that you can keep it all organized the same way. Flip it over so the button is on the bottom side. Okay, to actually start attaching, I have chained 10. And this is going to go into the first double crochet after the chain space that I have marked. If your bracelet is longer, again, yours may not be in this exact same spot, but just put your stitch marker so that your next double crochet is where you want to attach. I was holding it backwards, so make sure that your thumb loop is on this side, your finger loop, your index finger loop is here, and so on. You remember, the index finger loop is a little bit longer than the next 2. So you've got a slightly longer one here. These are all the same, but this one attaches closer to, like with a half treble instead of a full treble. And then these ones are here. Just make sure that like this is oriented this way to follow my video. You can flip everything around and do whatever makes sense for you. That's fine too. So go into from back to front, as in the part touching the table is the back when I'm saying that. And we're just going to slip stitch here. And before I do anything else, I'm going to chain 8, which is my next connection. Trying to keep those fairly tight. Now, before I continue, and I recommend you do this too, set this all back down again, because it's very easy, I've done this several times on this first one, to accidentally end up like somehow folding these two chains so I can't do it on purpose, of course, but it's very easy to do it. And if they're in any way like crossing over each other or this fabric is like twisting, stop, put it down, make sure that everything is lined up how you want it. Again, thumb loop here, index finger here, not this section. This is the index finger section. So make sure that everything is correct before you proceed, and you will be happier in the long run. So now that we've chained 8, this is going to go between sections 7 and 8, which is here. And to do this connection is probably the hardest one, because the way that I'm holding everything, sometimes depending on which hand you're making and everything else, sometimes this is going to be harder to split than other times. Because I've already made this one and taken it apart, it's a little bit like I'm cheating because I struggled to find this spot the first time. I finally found it, then I left it attached for a while, and now it's kind of stretched out. I am splitting this the same kind of way that I did with the trebles and half trebles, because I don't want this to be very loose and stretched out either. Whatever works for you is fine. So now I've made this connection. I'm going to chain 6. Wait, what did I just do? 6? See, it's so easy for me to lose my place while I'm talking. Yes, chain 6. And let's put everything back down. I'm doing the one where the button is facing up, so I want to make sure that's up, and make sure that as I position this so that this one will be going down the bracelet away from the marker, nothing is folded or laying funny that I've done so far. We're looking good. So this one goes 5 double crochets apart from that one, which means the end of this group of 3. We're going back to front. I'm doing my... Oop, that's actually not the right way I want to hold this. So when you put your hook in, just make sure you're happy with the direction your yarn is coming off of your hook compared to the orientation of the chain you just made. You want it to be like in the back. I know that's probably a little tricky to see. So the yarn is coming out this way. I'm gonna put my thumb on this loop. This is exactly how I just did the chain. Like I was chaining it, but I was holding the chain like this. That's how I would chain with it in the back. Just make sure it's still like that. Take your bracelet edge, find that stitch you want, and make sure that when you're now ready to slip stitch that your yarn is just not crossing across your web chain, or else that's one way you can get like a weird bunching effect. Okay, we've slip stitched there. Now we chain 4 for this one. And we want to go about halfway into the next section of web, which is section 7. So I know I made this an even number, so there's no perfect halfway point, but again, yours might be different, so just aim for about halfway. And try to make that fairly secure. You can try and make this a little more secure by just making sure that you have 2 loops on top of your hook when you make your slip. It doesn't have to be perfectly in the back bump like that one was just now. It could be like 1 leg and 1 back bump on top of your hook. That's also fine. Now we are chaining 6. I'm really going to be close on thread here. That's what you get for starting over again. We want to count 4 double crochets down, which means all the way down here. We want 8 now. We're almost done. little teeny hook. Chaining 8. This one goes halfway up the next web section, and whenever I do these, I do think it's important to just make sure that you're looking good before you keep going, which gets increasingly difficult for me for some reason. Okay, so now we're going to go halfway up to this next section here, and just do your best, again, making this secure. Oh goodness. Yep, we're just going for this way this time. Slip stitch. Make sure that nothing, oops, sorry about that. Make sure nothing looks weird and twisted. One more chain, 8. Oops. Trying to pull it so tight so that I don't waste any thread. Popped right out. Okay, I think I got away with it. I only have this much left. Now our last connection is the 5th double crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so at this point, I'm ready to secure that, pulling my end through because I'd already cut it before. And let's just check and see how we look. Quick note on finishing when you weave in your ends. And since this is meant to accompany the blog post I've written, when I give you a list of materials, I mentioned that you probably want a needle that's a little pointier than your standard yarn needle. And that's just because this is very, very small. When something is woven in securely, it's kind of ideal if you can split some of the fibers of the yarn. That is not going to be possible if you're using sort of your standard yarn needle. Now, these are different yarn needles that I've gotten with other kits and sets and stuff. They're included with all kinds of things. I prefer to use metal ones just because I've broken several plastic, so I have plastic ones too, but they're away somewhere. These are like your standard, and if you only have these, hopefully you at least have one this size. These are definitely just too big. These are so big. You may as well just crochet your end back in at that point, which you can totally do. I'm not great at that, so I'm not going to show that. But you are probably already used to working around this if you only have giant yarn needles like these ones. The one I prefer to use also came with a kit. It's just considerably smaller, and it definitely is pointier. And that's also why I recommend using a needle threader, because getting the yarn end through this smaller hole, it's not impossible, but I made like a million of these to practice this pattern, and I got pretty tired of threading it. So I use this very cheap yarn threader that I do not actually recommend for regular size yarn. Mine is bent all out of shape because I tried it on things I should not have tried it on. This actually, I think, was for cross stitching, and I ended up using it for things I wasn't supposed to. I don't know where to even find this exact one anymore. So the one I have linked on my blog is not this exact one because seriously, it doesn't really matter. I think you could use any of them. You just need to get something that will fit through the eye of whatever needle you have. And I just find this thread to be very annoying to thread without using a tool. So that's all I wanted to say about finishing, because the tools listed on my blog I hadn't mentioned in the video with the same specificity that I had written down. Here we are now. We have finished this bracelet. This is what you saw in the beginning of the video. This is hot off the presses. I just finished weaving in the ends right before I recorded this part. And yeah, I am really happy with how this turned out. I know, again, I mentioned this in the intro, but you may have skipped it. I know that the black crochet thread of the same brand can vary a bit in tension. I think it's a matter of thickness or stiffness. I'm not completely sure which. I don't have a microscope on hand to see how much thinner it is, but it feels and looks a little thinner to me when you work with it than this one does. So part of it could be the optical illusion of me being pale and this being a light color and then this showing up more, but you can see that the black thread just doesn't work quite the same. Now, I did not want to be dishonest and make this differently and then show you the finished product being like, no, make it in black and it will look exactly the same. I don't agree with doing that. I want to be totally clear here and say that if you don't have this exact thread on hand that I used here, and I used the most common brand of thread, Aunt Lydia's, but it's possible you don't have that and you may want to make this with like sock weight yarn or something like that. That's totally fine. This is completely customizable for you to do that. I still recommend doing a split stitch when you place these because it adds durability. Even on this black one where it's very loose and stretchy, those do not stretch apart. They are completely secure. So all you have to do is adjust these chain lengths and everything will be great. It would look perfect. But just make sure, again, that whatever it is that you're using, you're happy with it as it's working up. I think that's a better approach than trying to give you a gauge, because when you're using a very tiny hook and you're just making chains, that's not really the same thing as working so many double crochets or single crochets or whatever. I know you may think I'm being lazy when I say that, but I genuinely don't think most people don't like making a gauge swatch anyway. So here we are. I think the best thing you can do for yourself is just record what works for you with the materials that you have, and that way you don't have to go out and buy anything if you already have thread or something like that. Thank you so much for watching. All of the information for this will also be on my blog, and I'll put as much as I can into the description box of this video. If you like this, please give it a thumbs up. It does help me. I'm new at this. I know this was long, and I don't know if YouTube will promote it to anybody ever anyway, but your likes will help, and if you want to see more of what I'm doing, please subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out just to know that my content is being watched. Finally, I have a Ko-fi page where you can purchase a PDF of the pattern. That pattern will be everything from the blog plus photos and just as much clarity as I can put together, just to help you out if you don't have access to the internet and you want to print it out. I want to make sure that you have a good time making this wherever you are or whatever your setup is. Okay, I think that about does it. I've talked enough now. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to all my supporters on Ko-fi. You really keep me going and you motivate me to do better with everything that I do. Bye everybody! Happy web making!